Defensible space is a strategy that aims to reduce fire fuel and vulnerability.
Defensible space is the area around the home that's been purposely managed and maintained in order to reduce the impact that wildfire has on a property.
A defensible home takes into consideration your entire property. And there's 4 components. The first component would be the vegetation that's surrounding your property. The second component would be to look at your access. The third would be looking at your building construction. Is it fire resistant construction? And then the last component would be looking at, if there was a fire at a distance, how would your home respond to embers?
Defensible space is a landscape that is broken down into 4 zones, with the area closest to the structure being the least densely vegetated and flammable, and the furthest being more natural.
So 0 to 30 feet is a fairly open, characteristic planting with low-growing plants with a lot of hardscaping. The second zone tends to be more succulents, still kind of an open concept, irrigated plants. The third zone tends to be more Mediterranean types of plants, not quite as open as the first 2 zones. And then the last zone is zone 4, which tends to be more of the native plants.
For evidence of the effectiveness of employing a defensible space strategy, all you have to do is look to the hills. Many of the homes that survived the T and Hezecita fires 8 years ago wouldn't be there if it weren't for defensible space.
So when we bought the place 2 years after the T fire, I guess, this house had burned down and not rebuilt. The one behind it, this one still hasn't rebuilt. This one had not yet rebuilt. So really the only one you could see standing right here is this single surviving house and ours. It was pretty well set up in terms of defensible space. You see the oaks around the property, but not too much other big vegetation near the home. No branches of the oaks that hang too close to the roof line. There's nice wire meshing over any of the vents to the house. The home itself is made of adobe, so that's helpful. There's only a limited amount of exposed wood on the outside, and then the clay tile roof is helpful for fire reduction.
So the house behind us burned and the house in front of us burned, but there were firefighters on the street, and they couldn't catch every house, but fortunately we had done our defensible space clearing, and so they were able to stay.
And that's the true power of defensible space. It reduces the chances of wildfire getting to your home while increasing the chances firefighters can defend it.
Sizing up a fire for firefighters, they're looking at protecting a structure, but first off, they're looking at protecting their lives.
Firefighters have a split-second decision when they're working during a wildfire to assess and determine which homes would actually be defensible, and a large way that they do that is making sure that homeowners have done their defensible space and what's visible from the outside of the home when they approach a home during a wildfire.
Defensible space has other benefits too. Native plants use less water and require less maintenance, and with proper vegetation thinning, you may gain access to more of your property.
We got together with our neighbors that summer before the T and did a lot of clearing. I mean, so much clearing on this side, we didn't even know the contour of the space between our 2 homes. That's how thick it was. And so it was amazing, and it was much more beautiful after we cleared it.
While the principles of defensible space are simple, knowing where to start can be daunting. And that brings us back to the Wildland Fire Suppression Assessment District.
So inside the Wildland Fire Suppression Assessment District, any homeowners can contact us, and we'll be happy to come out to their property and assess their defensible space on their home and work with them one-on-one to make sure that they're creating an effective defensible space around their structure and on their property.
And to me, it gives us information, but it also lets them know the property. And so if they want to come up here and stage, I'm totally, that's totally wonderful.
Probably every couple of years we'll have a fire person come by and say, what do we still need to do? And this year it was the bottom of the garage doors, rubber gasket thing that goes along the bottom. He says, those are worn out, and that's right where the wind, will suck it in. And that had never occurred to me, so we replaced those. Of course, that wasn't expensive or time-consuming, but it was like that, that locked up that area.
a few little tips we had here and there. For example, there's this plant, these sumacs, that's a volunteer and really invasive, grows so quickly. And so the fire department pointed out where the sumacs were growing near the base of the oak trees, that creates a fire ladder, and that even though they're far away from the house in the canyon, that's one thing we could do to really minimize the risk of fire, is to cut all of the sumacs annually